Rome does not forgive weakness. It never had. From the moment a Roman child learned to speak, they learned stories of men who rose, and men who were erased. Names scratched from memory, families destroyed by backing the wrong faction. Power was not something you held, it was something you survived. Into this city, in the year 100 BCE, Gaius Julius Caesar was born. Rome was already bleeding. The streets still remembered the screams from the Civil War between Gaius Marius and Licinius Cornelius Sulla. Blood had soaked into the forum stones. Senators had been hunted like animals. Lists of names, death sentences, had once been nailed to public walls. This was not ancient history. This was Caesar's childhood. And Rome was about to teach him exactly what kind of man he would need to become. Caesar was born into an ancient name that no longer carried power. The Julii traced their lineage back to Venus herself. But mythology doesn't protect you from knives. Caesar's family was respectable, not dominant, important, but not safe. More dangerous still was his bloodline by marriage. Caesar's aunt was married to Gaius Marius, the general who had turned Rome's army into a personal weapon and shattered the old republic. When Sulla seized control, he began the proscriptions. Political murder legalized. Property seized. Families ruined. Teenage Caesar was ordered to divorce his wife Cornelia, daughter of a Marian ally. He refused. It was a small act, and almost a fatal one. Sulla considered executing him. Only a plea of powerful friends saved the boy's life. As Caesar fled Rome, Sulla reportedly said, "In this young man, there are many Mariuses." Caesar never forgot that. And from that moment on, he understood something essential. Rome did not reward innocence. It rewarded calculation. Caesar did not return to Rome as a hero. He returned as a student. He served in Asia Minor, where he earned Rome's highest military honor for saving a fellow soldier's life. He studied rhetoric obsessively, knowing that in Rome, words were weapons. Then came the pirates. Captured while traveling, Caesar behaved not like a hostage, but like a commander, temporarily inconvenienced. He joked with his captors, criticized their poetry, promised he would crucify them once he was freed. They laughed. They shouldn't have. After his ransom was paid, Caesar raised a fleet, hunted them down, and had them executed. Mercifully, strangled first, because he had grown almost fond of them. This wasn't cruelty, it was control. Caesar learned early that reputation mattered as much as force. Rome rewarded spectacle. Caesar gave it everything it wanted. Public games, lavish feasts, grand funeral for his aunt that subtly honored Marius, reviving forbidden memories. He went into debt deeper than any Roman before him. Millions of Caesarii. It terrified his allies. It empowered him. Debt tied Caesar to Marcus Licinius Crassus, Rome's richest man. Caesar became indispensable to him politically. The masses adored Caesar for his generosity. This was not recklessness. This was architecture. Caesar was building a coalition made of money, memory, and hunger. Spain was Caesar's proving ground. As governor, he fought swiftly, decisively. He paid his troops well. He punished corruption. He rewarded loyalty. When his soldiers followed him into battle, they believed he would bring them home alive. That belief mattered. Standing before a statue of Alexander the Great, Caesar wept. Not from envy, from urgency. Alexander had conquered the world by Caesar's age. Caesar had not yet begun. Rome was paralyzed. Pompey had armies. Crassus had wealth. Caesar had the people. Together, they had everything Rome feared. The First Triumvirate was not official. It was not legal. It was unstoppable. Caesar became consul. While the Senate resisted, he ignored them. When they obstructed, he passed laws anyways, backed by force and popular support. Rome learned another lesson. Institutions only matter when everyone agrees to obey them. Then, Caesar secured Gaul, and Gaul would change everything. Gaul was not conquered. It was broken. Year after year, Caesar marched. He fought tribes larger than his army. He crushed rebellions. He annihilated resistance. But more important than the battles was the story. Caesar wrote it himself. Every campaign was framed as defensive. Every massacre justified. Every victory magnified. At Alesia, surrounded and outnumbered, Caesar did the impossible, building fortifications facing inward and outward simultaneously. His men followed him into hell, because he never asked them to go where he would not. Caesar was no longer a man, he was a legend, and Rome was terrified. When the Senate ordered Caesar to surrender his command, he understood the truth. Disarm and die. Submit and be destroyed. Rome had taught him this lesson when he was 16. So Caesar crossed the Rubicon, not as a tyrant, as a man who knew exactly how Rome treated the powerless. Pompey fled. The Senate panicked. Rome did not fight, because Rome had already accepted that power followed armies, not votes. Caesar marched into the city not as a conqueror, but as an inevitability. Caesar did not invent empire. Rome trained him for it. Every reformer murdered, every general rewarded, every precedent broken. Caesar simply won. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he did not march as a butcher. That was the first thing that confused everyone. Rome expected vengeance, proscriptions, blood in the streets. That was how civil wars worked now. Sulla had taught them that. Caesar offered mercy instead. He announced that no Roman would be executed for opposing him. Senators who fled were invited to return. Enemies were forgiven publicly. This was not kindness, it was strategy. Caesar understood something Sulla never did. Terror creates resistance, but mercy creates debt. And debt was power. Pompey, meanwhile, fled Italy, not because he lacked armies, but because he lacked confidence. His strength lay in reputation, not decisiveness. Caesar moved faster, thought clearer, took risks. Italy fell without a battle. The Republic collapsed not with a scream, but with silence. Pompey regrouped in Greece, assembling a massive force. Senators, aristocrats, and legions loyal to tradition rather than charisma. They outnumbered Caesar heavily, but Caesar's men were veterans of Gaul. They trusted him with their lives. At Pharsalus, Pompey had every advantage, except one: belief. Caesar spoke to his troops before the battle, not as a general, but as a man who had marched beside them for years. He reminded them of Gaul, of Alesia, of shared hardship. Then, he gambled. Pompey's cavalry were overwhelming. Caesar countered by pulling infantry from his rear lines, ordering them to aim not at shields, but at faces. The tactic worked. Pompey's cavalry broke. His army collapsed. Pompey fled. Again. The war was over. Rome just didn't know it yet. Pompey ran to Egypt, seeking refuge. Instead, he found betrayal. Egyptian couriers murdered him and presented his severed head to Caesar, believing they were currying favor. Caesar wept, not for Pompey, for Rome. Pompey had been the last symbol of the old order, a rival, an equal, a reminder that Caesar was not alone. Now, there was no one left to blame, only Caesar. In Egypt, Caesar met Cleopatra. She was young, brilliant, dangerous. She did not seduce Caesar with beauty. She seduced him with intelligence. Cleopatra understood power instinctively. She ruled through myth, ritual, and spectacle, just as Rome did. Caesar saw in her not a distraction, but a mirror. Their alliance was political first, personal second. Together, they crushed her rivals. Caesar stayed in Egypt longer than Rome liked. Rumors spread. A Roman king, bewitched by an Eastern queen. The whispers mattered, because Rome tolerated dictators, but it hated kings. When Caesar returned to Rome, he did not return quietly. He celebrated 4 triumphants: Gaul, Egypt, Pontus, Africa. No Roman had ever done this. Statues were erected, honors piled up, titles accumulated. Dictator for 10 years, then for life. Caesar reformed everything: debt law, citizenship, provincial governance, the calendar itself. Rome was finally functioning, and that terrified the Senate, because Caesar was proving something unforgivable. Rome did not need them. Caesar never called himself king. He didn't need to. The people offered him a crown publicly, twice. He refused it, twice. But everybody knew the truth. He sat like a king. He ruled like a king. He planned like a king. Rome's aristocracy had lost relevance, and relevance was all they had. The conspirators told themselves they were saving the Republic, but the Republic they remembered no longer existed. Caesar had outgrown it. On March 15th, 44 BCE, Caesar walked into the Senate, unarmed, confident. He had survived pirates, civil war, betrayal, and disease. He did not believe Rome would kill him. He was wrong. Daggers fell, not from enemies, from men he had forgiven, from men he had promoted, from men who believed murder could resurrect a corpse. Caesar fell at the base of Pompey's statue. Rome watched its future bleed out on the floor. The conspirators thought killing Caesar would restore the Republic. They did not understand what Caesar had become. He was not the disease. He was the symptom. The crowd did not cheer. They rioted. When Mark Antony read Caesar's will, leaving money to the people, Rome exploded. Caesar was dead, but his cult of personality lived on, and it would consume them all. Caesar did not live to become emperor, but he made emperors inevitable. He proved one man could command loyalty beyond law. One man could replace institutions with competence. One man could be mourned more than the Republic. Augustus would finish what Caesar started, not by force, but by learning from his uncle's mistakes. Caesar broke the Republic. Augustus would freeze the pieces in place and call it peace.